tattoos. When I love squad members, I can't act cool. Hey, young, this your beat? Nothing lasts forever, I don't got tattoos. I love squad members, I can't act cool. I like my bitches short and thick and ain't gotta act rude. She won't treat me like I'm the rest, cause I ain't that dude. I seen some things as a child that changed my thoughts for them. Try to do right, I'm on the ass and I won't fucking let them. Hit from the side, bitch, don't be lazy, lift your fucking leg up. To all my niggas going through a struggle, keep your fucking head up. Anything you going through, I'm a witness, it won't last forever. Just stay down and hold your side, don't change up like the weather. If he around me, then he got a ruler, but he ain't trying to measure. I got it in here, me some weed to get my thoughts together. Hard in the summer, but my heart cold, so I got a rocket sweater. We came in this roll alone, so we ain't gon' leave out together. I know I'm blessed, I know my worth, so I can never settle. You can't show yourself before you only time can tell you. Kid, you one time to fuck up, then you can't go here. Whoa, dear, I got too many steps to bring a pole here. No deal, I won't set my soul ain't high and go here. I won't school, I stay loyal to my niggas and my face stick to the cold here. It's a new 40 on my side, the bitch a blow here. It's a different dope besides the blunt, we getting lows in. Smoking on some dope from across the country, got a joke in. Treat the bitch like a receiver, put the bitch emoji in. I'm drinking on some shit that change a mood, we call it potion. Can't even hide the 30 in the clip, it be poking. And up off them beans, we got some smoke, let get it going. White girl playing with a low lens and low hand. My little cousin slipped up and lost a baby, she was 16. Ain't doing shit for free, I want 200 for a 16. Glock with a dick, 30 clip with a red beam. She make it hard for me, cause all that nigga sold a big dream. Don't lose on thug behind no shit you saying that you ain't me. All my niggas slide, you know what's up, bitch, you can't play me. I see the picture clear, my life a movie like it's HD. I'm on 50K screens and I ain't got no post on say cheese. Light a little whipping when I up it, better say cheese. This life taught me some lessons for the school, I own no degree. I'm just trying to take care of my people, how you hate me. When a nigga got caught with that elite, the shit was crazy. Bitch, the trap baby shit don't do that.
Hook. You know, the Bible says you're supposed to make your wife coffee, right?
Stop lying. Where?
No, right here. For real. See? Hebrews.
What you are looking at is a monument to Wade Hampton. Wade Hampton was one of the largest enslavers in the state of South Carolina, which was one of the largest slave-holding states. And yet, here on the Capitol grounds, there is a monument to him. If South Carolina wants to recognize and remember this period of history, then it is incumbent upon South Carolina and the United States as a whole to repair the damage that has come from this period in history. At the end of the Civil War, Black Americans who are descendants of American slaves, legislatively called freemen, were supposed to receive their 40 acres in a mule, and that never happened. Instead, they saw their black Wall Streets burnt to the ground. They experienced Jim Crow, they experienced redlining, which robbed them of billions in dollars of wealth. In order for America to heal, Black America has to be repaired. I am running to repair Black America because until we all stand, we all have fallen.
Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening. Thank you guys for joining us for episode number 62 of the Get Hook podcast. As always, this is your boy Hook.
And I'm back. Never on time, but never late. Hi, Gregg.
Hi, how are you, Chris?
I'm amazing.
All right, so today we're going to be having a one-on-one with Mr. Gregg, Marcel, Dixon, and we're going to give him an opportunity to introduce himself and tell you guys a little bit about him here in a second. One thing that we here at the Get Hood podcast that we're big on is not just voting, but also voting informed. Oftentimes we vote for incumbents or we vote for people who we know or people who we like, people who throw the biggest fish fry or the cookout or whatever. But I think it's really important that you really get to know all the candidates so you can make an informed decision. Um, Change doesn't come by itself, so we have to be the catalyst for that change. So, Chris, what's your take on voting informed? Like what's your thing on that?
First of all, he had me at repairing Black America. You know, that excites me already. But I agree. It's for some reason we've become okay with the world becoming a popularity contest. Who do we all know? Who makes the most unkept promises and different things? One thing I love about this generation of people is that we are no longer being okay with the norm. We're not okay with because you're cool. We're not okay with because you have a fish fry, even though we ain't getting no fish. It's not okay that everybody just knows you or you've been it. If it's not broke, don't fix it. No, we've been broke. We need to
Thank
fix,
you.
and we need to call out things that we haven't been calling out. So fresh faces, you give them a chance. If you come in and you don't do it, then move it out and get someone who comes in and does. But it's a system of good old boys, and it's time to change. So I am excited that we are not only showing you names, but you're hearing voices and understanding their purpose and making an informed decision when you vote.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for the viewers and the audience, make sure that you guys comment because we do want to read your commentary. Make sure you share, and also make sure you react. You know, we really want to know how you guys feel about this topic. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get this thing cracking. So, Mr. Marcel, go ahead and tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Gregg Marcel Dixon, but I usually go by my middle name, Marcel. I am born in Savannah, Georgia, but my family has lived in the Jasper County, Beaufort County area for generations, going back to at least the mid 1700s. So I'm Sea Island or Gullah Geechee to the core. I'm in Jasper County, resident, native, lived there my entire life, worked there my entire life, still work there. I'm proud of being from Jasper County. I'm a teacher, been teaching for 17 years, and I'm running now for the U.S. Congress, South Carolina's 6th Congressional District. And the reason why I am running is because as a teacher, I saw deep poverty growing up. I saw some of my cousins who were so impoverished they used to have to chop wood and burn it in order to keep warm and had to use outhouses because they lacked indoor plumbing. And that was in the 90s and early 2000s. I became a teacher thinking I could break that cycle. And as a teacher, I'm proud to say I've won awards for my teaching. I've won bonuses for my teaching. I've been named Teacher of the Year for my school, Teacher of the Year for my district. I have taken my kids to academic competitions. And y'all being in Allendale County, me being in Jasper County, y'all know, unfortunately, our counties tend to experience a lot of educational failure. I would take those same kids to academic competitions against schools that were far wealthier, usually majority white, majority Asian schools, and we would beat them all, coming in second place, the highest, twice in a competition these schools have been going to for 40 years, much more experience, much more resources, and going against little old me and my much blacker, by far much poorer group. And I thought I was giving back and making a change, and I was making a change, but it wasn't enough. I was seeing too many of my students ending up dead in extreme cases, in jail, and even the kids who made all the right decisions, I was seeing them fighting the same poverty their parents have fought, my classmates, their grandparents have fought, their great grandparents have fought, fighting that same poverty. Meanwhile, I was seeing the children of people in the country illegally buying land that our black people could no longer afford to keep because we lost
Woo!
it to tax default sales because of heirs property. I would see them buy acres upon acres of property, two-story homes, 3 vehicles. I would see even the poor white children do better than the black children who went to college and got a college degree. And then I did research finding out that a black person, college educated with a college degree and a professional job, is still less wealthier than a white man who drops out of high school and who is in poverty, because that poor white person is more than likely to own the property on which they stay. Whereas black Americans, we have had most of our property stolen from us. I was seeing that. But what I wasn't seeing was anyone standing up saying specific policies they were going to do for people that look like me, people who are descendants of the people that built this nation. And then I did research, and I found out that where we live, South Carolina District 6, which includes Allendale County, includes Jasper County, James Clyburn has been our congressman for the past 30 years. I found out that the United States of America has 435 congressional districts, okay? 435. Our district is the sixth poorest out of all of those districts, meaning we are almost the poorest place in the entire United States of America.
My Lord.
And I said, I could make an excuse for this man, or I can make a change. And my great-grandmother always told me, never make a complaint unless you are willing to stand up and try to make a difference. And that's why I'm running.
Great. That's certainly commendable. And you know, you really hit home when you talked about especially rural counties. Me growing up in Allendale, certainly well aware of the struggles that rural counties face. Now, you mentioned Allendale, you mentioned Jasper County. What other counties will you be serving should you be elected?
It's a lot of them. So Richland County, Sumter County, Williamsburg County, Orangeburg County, Hampton County, Charleston County, Dorchester County, Clarendon County, Colleton County, and then, Allendale, Jasper, and Bamberg as well.
Awesome. And hopefully, I know I have my people from Allendale watching, but hopefully we have a lot of other people from some of those same counties you mentioned, so they can certainly hear.
I've definitely shaken up Richland County. I'm born and raised in Richland County, but even from Richland County, it's amazing to see what we've seen. And then to know that there are things that you've experienced in other counties that are happening, like schools with mold, like schools with hallways that are torn up, like schools that after a storm looks like the school is under construction and people are still going around dripping water and different things that, I've been blessed not to have seen to that extent. But it makes you realize, A, to be humble, but B, to hear you say that we are close to the bottom. And that's not an uncommon statement. South Carolina hits close to the bottom on a lot, from education to buildings to poverty to so many different things. And although we do love to say, oh, look, he's one of us, it is hurtful to know that you're in position to change it. But we have not changed. And it's hurtful because now we are the parents. And it's a different monster when you are not someone who went to school with the who knows who's and the who he who's and then and the people, but you sat in the trenches. And now because of where you've been, you feel a different passion and a fight. I pray you don't lose the fight as you go into this new battle of going into Congress and politics. But your stats were eye-opening.
And I have confronted Congressman Clyburn with that. There's a video online, I'm not sure if y'all saw it, of me confronting him in Ridgeland. He came to Ridgeland to a new banquet hall that we have. It's really a restaurant that was renovated, and I confronted him with those stats. The video's on YouTube. It went viral. It had over 350,000 views. I confronted him with these stats, and I said to him, you endorsed this so-called president we have now, Joe Biden. And I want to remind people, I'm running as a Democrat, but let me tell you, no one's going to tell me what I can and cannot say. No one's going to tell me who I can and cannot criticize. The Democratic Party would not even exist if it wasn't for Black Americans putting them in power. So if it's my people putting you in power, and it's because of my people that you exist, you absolutely better believe I'm going to hold your damn feet to the fire about my people. And I said to Congressman Clyburn, I said, your district is the sixth poorest out of 435 U.S. congressional districts. I said, not just that, your district, Denmark, South Carolina, right there in Bamberg, hasn't had clean water in 10 years. They're trying to tell the people right now that the water is clean, and people still don't believe them. Where's Congressman Clyburn about that? Do you hear him talking about that in the news? I watch every public appearance he makes. He doesn't even mention it. The fact that they were putting this chemical in Denmark, South Carolina's water supply and not telling people there, people should have been thrown in jail. But because they did it to a majority black rural county that's very impoverished, no one has suffered any consequences for it. North Charleston has the most toxic water in the United States of America. You're from Richland County, Chris. Richland County has the worst health outcomes than any other community in the United States of America. The number of black men and women there getting their limbs amputated is higher than any other community in the United States of America. Y'all can read about it. They did a whole article about it in the state newspaper in Columbia, South Carolina. Our district has the highest eviction rate. North Charleston at one point was putting out more black women than any other city in the United States of America. Nothing was being done about it. Our schools are some of the lowest performing schools in the United States of America. We all know about the terminology, the corridor of shame. I went to school in Jasper County, like you, Hook, went to school in Allendale County. So we're products of the so-called corridor of shame. Now, I used to hate that terminology, corridor of shame. Now I embrace it. It's corridor of shame, all right, but the shame should be on the congressmen and women who have allowed that type of poverty to exist, who have allowed where black boys, over 90% of black boys are not reading or doing math on grade level. And it's not because they're not intelligent enough. It's because as a teacher, I know this from personal experience, kids come to schools with a lot of issues, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And if that applies to all kids, we know for black kids, it's going to be even more pronounced. So when you have kids coming from homes where they don't have enough food, where they don't even have a stable roof over their head. One minute they're staying with grandmother, one minute they're staying with their cousin. Some nights they're staying in some roach-infested motel where people next door are fighting over drugs or there's prostitution rings going on, where you have violence and you have drug addiction, which is rampant. All of those things were brought into our communities, by the way, by the government. Drugs and mass incarceration.
Yes,
When you have
Lord.
kids who are facing those things day in and day out, when they come to school, they can't even focus on how to do reading and writing. Their minds are in survival mode. But that is where the federal government is supposed to come in. Look at what's happening right now with white Americans. They call it the opioid crisis, with white Americans abusing drugs and dying from drug overdoses. And what are they doing for white Americans? They're giving them programs to help them. They're helping them buy houses. They're giving them jobs. But when they brought heroin into black American communities, which killed my mother's father, by the way, when they first brought it into the Northeast in New York City and then down in Baltimore, they were throwing black people in jail left and right before people even knew what these drugs were and the impacts they would have. And then when it really got bad in the late 70s and 80s, they were throwing so many of us in jail that sometimes whole blocks you can go and not find a black man. So you see, they support every other community. Congressman Clyburn, I spoke about land laws. Here's a statistic, and I dare someone to prove me wrong and tell me that I'm making it up, because I don't got to make stuff up. His record is his record. Black Americans have lost 15 million of 16 million acres of land that our ancestors were able to purchase. They had to fight to get it, going through lynch mobs, going through wage discrimination, going through debtors' prison, sharecropping. They were still able to buy as many as 60 million acres of property. They had to fight off lynch mobs. The number one reason for lynching was land theft. It wasn't some white lady lying. It was land theft. But we've lost, or we've had stolen, I should say, 90% of our land. Our district is 50 to 60% black. And as y'all know, most of the black people in our district live on heirs property, which is property we inherit, but not from a will, so we all have to share the property. And as I'm sure a lot of y'all both know, people used to sell their shares or be forced to sell their share of the property. And then a judge will usually allow a wealthier person, usually a wealthier white person, to buy everyone else's share. So if there was 10 people on a property, you pay them each $1,000 and they got to get going, even though the property was worth $300,000. Well, that's how we've lost a lot of our property. So the thing with heirs property, though, because my family has 9 acres in Ladies Island, some houses in downtown Beaufort, and 10 acres in here in Ridgeland, but we don't get any value from that property. You can't get any equity from it. You could barely put a mobile home on it. The problem is, where does most wealth come from in the United States of America? It comes from land ownership. How did white America get most of their wealth? The federal government gave them hundreds of millions of acres of land via something called the Homestead Act. Abraham Lincoln signed the Homestead Act in 1861. They wanted people to move out west. All they had to do was pay a $5 filing fee, live on the land for 5 years, and the land was there. They gave away 10% of this country's entire surface. 48 million white American families can trace their wealth to the Homestead Act. We are living as a people with only 1 million acres of land in our possession, but we can't get any value from it. I have not seen Clyburn write a single bill to deal with that issue for us to get equity from our land or for us to get compensation for the land that was stolen. He hasn't written a single bill for that. However, I can tell you what he has done. When he first got in office in 1993, the first thing Congressman Clyburn did was sponsor a bill for a certain group of people who have gone through historical injustices, not us, even though you would think it would be us, to get special recognition, privileges, protections, and rights. This group is called the Catawba Native Americans. They live up there by the South Carolina, North Carolina border. Most of them are in North Carolina. The thing about this Native American group that you must know is that they used to enslave us, and they were very brutal. Not only did they used to enslave us, they were also slave catchers. If one of our unfortunate ancestors tried to escape and were caught by them, they were begged to get taken back to the white enslaver. Congressman Clyburn wrote a bill for them to get reparations. Now, his district is majority black, and South Carolina has always been 30% black or higher. Yet you will not find a single piece of legislation he's written for us to get paid even a penny of what this nation owes us. Now, in 2021, he wrote another bill for those same former enslavers, the Catawba Native Americans, for them to get 20 acres of land. I consider that an insult when you look at places like Hilton Head Island that used to be 90% black, but because all the land was stolen from us, is now 90% white. But he doesn't write a bill for us to get land. He writes a bill for these small group of Native Americans. There's only 3,000 of them. He writes a bill for them who used to enslave us. There's 1.3 to 2 million black Americans in South Carolina, and most of us are descendants of American slaves. Yet he put his legislative power to use for a group of people who used to enslave us, but not for the group that was enslaved, the group that gets him in office. That is what we get when we don't do our research by whom we're voting for.
That's awesome. A lot of those things you mentioned, I literally had no idea, especially about the Catawba Indians.
I didn't know about the Catawba Indians either, but he's right about we don't do our research. You remember the year that Alvin was his name, I think it was, and everybody voted him in office and realized that they didn't know who he was at all and all the crazy stuff that was going on, but they just saw his name, thought he was black, voted him in, had no idea who he was, what he meant, what he was capable of. It was embarrassing. It proved we don't read or research.
Definitely, and like we said earlier at the beginning of the program, it's about voting informed, and not
Yes.
based on name association alone. And Marcel, thank you for all the information you just gave, and yeah, you must be psychic because a lot of the things I was going to ask you, you actually
You know the
included.
answer?
Yeah, so yes, yeah, so that was phenomenal. But what I do want to ask, particularly for the counties that you're going to be serving. You mentioned a lot of needs that we have, right?
Absolutely.
So, if elected, what would be your highest priorities for the counties you're going to be serving?
So I'm going to say an answer that we as Black Americans are not used to hearing, but we need to get used to doing this because other groups, they don't shy away from what they feel they're owed. We as Black Americans, and when I say Black Americans, I'm not talking about Black immigrants. I'm talking about those of us who are descendants of the people who built this country, fought for this country, and were terrorized by this country. We still are, as you saw what happened in Buffalo, New York. How in the world
Absolutely.
did that racist scumbag plan all that stuff online and no one was able to catch it? No one knew about it? Give me a break. He said, that racist piece of crap said in his little manifesto that his biggest source of supporters are from the police and the military. That's what he said. So when I see that he planned all this stuff online, he was able to carry out that disgusting act, it makes me look twice at what we've already been told by the FBI, who said that white supremacists had infiltrated police precincts throughout the nation. I am going to start a new trend of us demanding what's owed to us. The first thing I'm going to do is write a bill for us to get reparations. Those are the people who are descendants of the 4 million people who were emancipated at the end of the Civil War. Why? If you are a Black person in South Carolina and your lineage is in South Carolina, you definitely should be all for this. The 40 acres in a mule, that comes from something called Special Field Order 15. That's when 20 Black pastors met with General Sherman right across the bridge from me in Savannah, Georgia, and he asked them, what could this country do to repair the wrongs done to the Negro? And they said to him, give us the land we cultivated. And Abraham Lincoln signed into law Special Field Order 15, which gave the land starting from Charleston, South Carolina, and all the Sea Islands, all the way down to Jacksonville, Florida, and all the Sea Islands, going 30 miles inland. All of that land was going to be our land, a Negro country, so to speak. It was going to be ours. So Allendale was a part of that. Ridgeland, where I am right now, was a part of that. Beaufort, Hilton Head Island, Charleston, Savannah. These areas are sacred grounds. This was the original 40 acres in a mule. Okay, that was what the country realized they owed us. But we know what happened. Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, and it never happened. We were supposed to be protected underneath the Freedmen's Bureau. The Freedmen's Bureau was a department of the government supposed to make sure we was well fed, protected, had homes, good wages. Congress destroyed it. So instead of getting protection and land and homes, we were met with lynch mobs. We was met with Jim Crow, debtors prison, vagrancy laws. In spite of that, y'all, we were able to build not just that one Black Wall Street that everybody knows about in Oklahoma. We built over 50 Black Wall Streets, and they were burnt to the ground, or they were flooded, or they will be taken over by eminent domain, which something we all know here, where the government can say, we're taking your property from you, give you some money, not usually what it's worth, and tell you get going. We went through terrorism. But just because this country has yet to pay us, it doesn't mean they do not owe us. Look at Ukraine right now. This country is saying that Russia is invading Ukrainian territory, and therefore we're sending trillions of dollars to some Europeans in Ukraine who don't have nothing to do with us. We've already sent them trillions of dollars in less than a month in military equipment and in direct aid. This nation, this same country, hasn't paid us a penny all the terror and all the war attacks that have been launched on us. So I'm going to write a reparations bill for us to get what we're owed. The only reason we have not gotten it, but the Japanese Americans got their reparations when America locked them all up in concentration camps during World War II. Native Americans have gotten theirs. The Holocaust survivors have gotten theirs. They're still getting reparations to this day. Why is it that all these other groups got it, but we as Black Americans didn't? Because no one stood up to fight for us to get it. And no one's doing it now. Look at Allendale. Look at Jasper County. These Black leaders we have, Congressman Clyburn being one of them, he should be every day and night saying, what about my people? You're not going to send trillions of dollars to Ukrainians and not my people. He's not talking like that. And you know why he's not doing that? Because we don't make him do it.
But so let me ask you a question. What does writing that bill look like? And the reason I'm asking is we hear people say, I'm going to go out, I'm going to write this bill, I'm going to go in, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But on our ignorance, we don't know what that looks like. What will you face when you try to write it? I mean, do you just get to write it and implement it? Who has to back you with it? Is there a level? Because we get out there when it's a president. Oh, we want Biden. Oh, we want Obama. But when it's those smaller elections, coroner, when we're looking at sheriff, when we're looking at all these different smaller leaders, who's going to be the treasurer? Who's going to be in these other places? We don't show up the same way. So what if you want to write that bill, which I wholeheartedly think is probably going to be one of the greatest things we've seen in a minute, what type of support would it take? Because we don't want you to get out there with the vision and don't have the backup to make it happen. What needs to happen to make those things happen from the people?
Well, first, I've already written the plan for the bill. It's on my website, marcelforcongress.com. Go to the We Deserve Better link of my website, and the plan's there. So the plan's there. I just had to put in legislative language. After I write the bill, though, I have to get support for it. It has to get enough votes to get out of the House, then has to get enough votes through the Senate. And that's where I come in, and that's where I will need y'all, because I'm only going to be one person. And look, we all know in America, whenever somebody stands up for Black Americans, you automatically have a target on your back, on your front, on your left side, your right side, your forehead. So I'm going to have to let them know that this ain't just me. I got the people on my side. But you know what? We're going to lose every fight if we don't even stand up to fight. You're only guaranteed to lose if you don't try to fight at all. Okay, if you fight even a losing battle, there's still a chance that you might win because you are fighting. And what I want to say is that if I do this reparations bill and it gets approved, which I want to say again, it's been approved for other groups, being that our district is 50 to 60% Black, that will automatically see a surge of revenue into the pockets of the majority of the people here in this district. That will take us from being one of the poorest districts to probably being one of the wealthiest. Another thing I want to do as well is deal with this issue of heirs property and land theft. Again, that comes by writing legislation. I want us, first of all, I want our people who left areas like Allendale and Jasper County. Allendale's population dropped by 11%. Jasper County's population dropped by 7%. People are leaving because there's no opportunities here. So they go to places like Atlanta, as we know, and now some people are going to Charlotte, and some people are even starting to go down to Jacksonville. I want our people who left to come back, okay? Because what I'm seeing, we're leaving, but you got illegal immigrants coming here, buying up all the property that we've left behind. That ain't going to happen on my watch. We're not going to go from being known as the Gullah Geechee people to now going from saying Binja to Ola. That's not going to happen on my watch. So I want our people to come back. But our people are only going to come back if they have wealth. Again, most wealth comes from land ownership. I also want our people to return to farming. Our people never wanted to leave farming. They were ran off farming because the United States Department of Agriculture discriminated against Black farmers by not giving them the same equipment and the same grants that they gave to white farmers. We need to go back to being able to feed ourselves, to being able to clothe ourselves, come back to living on our land where we can provide for ourselves, and then being able to police ourselves. I want us to go back to the days like when I was a kid and I lived in Pearlstein, which is a community in Ridgeland going before you get right into Bluffton. We never called the cops. If anything ever went wrong in our community, the older men of my community took care of things. They handled things down, okay? The older women made sure we were behaving, and the older men enforced the law. But now we're all scattered all over the place. We're all scattered. Your family live over there, so when your family is over there, we're not together like we used to be. a part of us being together is living together like we used to. But in order for us to live together like we used to, we have to understand why we don't live where we used to. It's because our areas were targeted with redlining and Jim Crow, which took a lot of resources from our community and starved our communities. Reparations, we get those resources back in our communities. When I write the legislation for us to be compensated for the land that has been lost via heirs property and to help us come back to our neighborhoods, that's going to get us back by each other. And then I write legislation for us to get the resources and the training we need to police our own people. And we could take care of our own people. What I will need for you, Chris, going back to your question, is when I make a phone call to y'all and I say, hey, y'all, they're trying to give me a hard time up here. They don't want to vote for my bill. And yet you look at these people and they get votes from people who look just like us. But when it's time to do laws for people like us, they don't want to support it. Blow their phones up. Write them. Call them. Come down to DC and come to their office. Pressure works. If I write a bill, I'm going to go to every person, white, Black, Republican, Democrat, and I'm going to talk with them. And I'm going to show them that what is good for Black America is good for all of America. That's what the data shows. The data shows that when Black Americans do well, all Americans do well. Unfortunately, though, when America does well, Black America does not always do well because they come up with rules to make sure we don't. I'm going to go to these people and say, this is what I want to do. This is how it's going to help the people in your district. Support me, please. If that doesn't work, but I see they get a lot of votes from Black Americans or they serve a lot of Black Americans, I'm going to their district. I'm going to the people where they live. And I'm going to let the people where they live know that this is your current predicament.
Right, Tracy.
You might think we're doing good because you may have a roof over your head and you may be able to go out every now and then. But this is really the wealth we have. Black Americans only have $24,000 in wealth. The average American family has $122,000 in wealth. So we're not doing good at all. And whereas everyone else's wealth is going up, Black America's wealth is heading to zero. COVID-19 came along and wiped out 50% of our businesses. So we might be there already. So I'm going to let our people know we're not doing well. I need you to support me. This is what I'm trying to do. And this is the person who represents you, and they are not signing off. We have to start holding these politicians accountable. And y'all, I'm going to say something that is probably not going to be popular, but I'm going to say it. We can't just be voting for a Black face in a high place, okay? Don't vote for me because I'm Black. Don't vote for Clyburn because he's Black. If a white person comes along and they are having policies that's going to really help our people, then vote for that white person. If a green person comes along and they have policies that's going to be good for our people, vote for that green person. We got to stop voting for someone just because they're Black, because no other group does that. When the Asian Americans were being attacked because of COVID-19, they said to Congress, you better do something about this. And what happened? They had an anti-Asian hate crime bill in 3 to 4 days. If you read that bill and you go to the part where it says purpose, why they wrote the bill, they will tell you they wrote it because of the hate crimes happening against Asian Americans. Black Americans have been going through hate crimes for over 500 years.
Mm-hmm.
Our anti-Black American hate bill. Where's Clyburn pushing on the anti-Black American hate bill? You see, I've talked to so many people in our district who support me, but there's a group of people who I have a hard time with, and some of them are older Black men. That's the group I have the hardest time with. Not all older Black men, but some. They act like Clyburn needs to be protected and not us. I'm sorry. I thought when you are in Congress, you are there for the people, not for the person. So when you look at our people, we have food deserts. If y'all know communities like Pineland and Tarboro, right before you go from Jasper County to Hampton County, Clio, you can drive 10 miles in those areas and not even pass a gas station, let alone a grocery store or a hospital. We deserve better than that. You got people who have from Allendale. I used to work at Hilton Head Island Regional, the hospital. I met people who work from Allendale who have to take the bus 4 a.m, take that almost 3-hour ride over there, and then get on the bus, take a 3-hour ride back, and get home at midnight. And they did that every single day just to barely get paid enough money and still will qualify for government assistance. We deserve better than that. But according to some of these people, we just need to protect Clyburn. Clyburn's all that matters. We don't matter. He matters. Let me tell you something. Be very, very suspicious of people who, when you come to them and you say, well, look at the data, things aren't good for us, and they start defending Clyburn instead of defending us, that's a red flag. It's about the people, not the person.
Absolutely.
That's a big situation right there about protecting people, because even hearing you speak right now, and growing up, my grandmother raised me. The older generation would say you're radical. The older generation would say the target on your back makes them go, listen, they got one of us in there. Calm down. But the reality is, we are the internet generation. We've watched pressure make shit happen. If you look at the amount of pressure they've put on people in convicting someone, the amount of pressure that's been put on people. I am a Law and Order fan, but the minute a case is publicized and it gets big, the pressure to convict is even heavier because the people do it. So the people have power. The kicker is, I don't know, even when Black Lives Matter hit, I learned then, and that's 2020, 2019, the power of the black dollar. That's the first time I think I researched how powerful the black dollar was. We don't know our power. We don't know our strength. We don't know our wealth. And this conversation that you're having with us today and what you're putting out I got a grandmother who is in her 80s. My grandma would be like, oh no, God, no, that's that right there, get everybody in the house killed. But the reality is, if we don't get out of that slave mentality of, oh my God, they're going to get us if we say something. We're going to forever sit in that bubble of ain't nothing changed. I tell people all the time, we're not here to survive anymore. We're here to thrive. And what you're talking about is us thriving. And that goes beyond the fear mentality. But it is a reality for a lot of us. You hit some stuff. I'm telling you, if my grandmama watch this right now, she's going to tell me, gal, don't you be on there talking all that stuff.
You see,
but
we gotta.
It's a reality check. It's hard to hear, but it's true.
You know, my mother kind of says the same thing too. I'm radical. She cries every day about my safety, and I say, "Mommy," I said, "Listen here. The reason I'm running is because we are not safe. Okay, I'm safer not running than I am running." Right. Breonna Taylor was in her apartment not doing a damn thing wrong and got shot and killed, okay? Tamir Rice was playing with a toy gun in broad daylight in Ohio, and Ohio is an open carry state, meaning it's legal to have a real gun out in the open. Tamir Rice was in a park playing with a toy gun and was gunned down. He wasn't safe, okay? I could go on and on about all. Philando Castile was coming back with his fiance and her daughter grocery shopping, went to reach for his license and got shot and killed. He wasn't safe. I can go on and on and on.
That shot that young man here in South Carolina. He reached
right.
out
I was to bring that up.
Told him to get, and he wasn't safe. The reality is, it doesn't. The safety isn't there whether we quiet, whether we loud, whether we vote, whether we sit. These people were doing things that did not make them. You were in a grocery store in Buffalo and still got shot. Safety is not guaranteed.
Safety, I don't care what you're doing. Exactly. I have to run because we're not safe. Not running and not fighting for reparations is not going to make us safer. Let me tell you, in the wilderness, a lion always goes after the animal that seems to be the weakest and the mildest. They don't like to mess with the one that they know is going to fight back. That's why lions usually mess with ostrich. An ostrich is a big old doofy looking bird. But do you know lions are afraid of them? And do you know why lions are afraid of ostriches? Because ostriches fight back. They kick at lions, and their kick can kill a lion. You know, our lions don't mess with the Cape buffalo because Cape buffaloes fight back. But lions do go after animals like gazelles because those animals usually don't fight back. Usually the people going there saying, don't do that, you will get us killed. Those are usually the ones that people will go after. Okay. Right. And I need
Marcel,
our
now I got
grand.
my Juneteenth shirt. My Juneteenth shirt saying "A world of lions." I'm an ostrich.
Well, guess what? Right. Put some feathers on me because that's what I am. I want to say this here. I want to say this. Okay, my great grandparents were all alive when I was a kid. They all died in my late 20s and 30s. I still have one still alive. He's up in New York. But they're from the generation of Fannie Lou Hamer. Okay? They're from the generation of a group called Deacons for Defense. A lot of people think the civil rights movement was Martin Luther King Jr. And by the way, Martin Luther King Jr. wasn't no coward. Okay? He wasn't a coward at all. He was fearless. So everybody wants to talk about how much they respect Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but then they don't want people to show that same energy he showed. But I want to talk about there were other types of groups around during the civil rights movement. There was a group called Deacons of Defense. And there's a book about them. You need to read it. It's called Negroes with Guns. And they were a part of a network of black people who had the attitude, you shoot at us once, we shoot at you 10. They had the attitude, we're going to bring that heat if you want that heat. Guess what? No one ever messed with them. As a matter of fact, one time, the student nonviolent resistance movement came to, I don't know if it was Georgia or Alabama, and they were being harassed there by some anti-black lynch mob. Guess what they had to do? Call the Deacons of Defense. Deacons of Defense came out with their guns. Like the cowards and the roaches they are, the little lynch mob all scattered. So we can't sit back and be afraid, okay? Fear and comfort are two of our biggest enemies. We are afraid of not voting for Clyburn because we think a Republican is going to take over. Well, here's a news flash. It ain't been too good for us under a Democrat either. Joe Biden said to us he would have our backs when he got elected. Joe Biden's been in office now for almost 2 years. He's written 90 executive orders. And here's who he's done it for. He's done it for trans people and LGBTQ. He's done it for Native Americans. He's done it for Asian Americans. He's even done it for illegal immigrants who aren't even citizens. They can't even vote. But he's written several bills for them. He hasn't written one piece of legislation for Black Americans. And he could do it. He can easily bring back the Freedmen's Bureau, a department that will be for protecting us. Executive order. He can easily do it. I mentioned this to Clyburn. He has not done it. But here's the worst part. Where is Congressman Clyburn getting on the news and saying, Joe Biden, my people got you there in office. What you doing for my people? And then they try to say that the lady, Ketanji Jackson Brown, whatever her name is, they try to make it seem like we're supposed to celebrate that. They still think symbolism is going to work. Having a first Black woman in the Supreme Court, a first Black woman climbing Mount Everest, that's not going to do us any good. Okay? The Supreme Court only hears, because the Supreme Court hears less than 1% of all cases in America. Less than 1%. So even if this lady is for us, there's very little she's going to be able to do on the things that will impact us the most often. We are no longer falling for symbolism. When they put Sonia Sotomayor on the Supreme Court, she was the first Hispanic Supreme Court justice. The reason I do quotation marks, because you got to watch some of these people who consider themselves Hispanic. Some of them are just as anti-Black as the non-Hispanic white Americans. Some of them could look just like us, and they'll still call themselves white. I've seen it. I've seen some Afro-Latinos who are still going around calling themselves white, or they say mejorando la raza, which means bettering the race, where they want to marry a white person, they can have a lighter-skinned child. So we got to watch them too. But my point is, though, when they got on the Supreme Court, Sonia Sotomayor, they didn't say to the Hispanic community, all right, there y'all go, leave us alone now. No, the Hispanic community said, well, what about immigration? We want to make these illegal immigrant citizens. They are demanding that. They've shown up and have yelled at congressmen about that. Asian Americans demanded protection when they was going through hate crimes. Native Americans always say, this was our land, y'all stole it from us, you owe us. The only group going around not demanding nothing, sitting there dancing in the streets and just celebrating a woman because she has natural hair and she went to an HBCU and dancing, that's us. We're the only group out there not demanding policies specifically for us. We are the only group that lets them come to us and do a hip hop dance and eat collard greens and put hot sauce on their cornbread, and we vote for them. That is an insult. I could not go to a Hispanic person and say, here's some tacos, vote for me, with a big sombrero on. I couldn't go to Asian Americans.
They would cancel you so
They were
fast.
right. I couldn't go to Asian Americans and do a little and eat with chopsticks and do a paper crane dance. I couldn't go to Native Americans and do a rain dance and say vote for me. Black Americans, we are the only group that lets people come and disrespect us, and then tell us we ain't black if we don't vote for them.
Right.
Let me tell you,
What can they do though? So one of the things that I've noticed for Black Americans is, and I'm gonna be honest with you, this is a pet peeve of mine. We fuss. We talk about what was done to us. You took the land from us. You held us in captivity. We've read. We know what they did. We know how bad it was. We've heard the stories. We see how bad test stuff is. We saw George Floyd. We watched him die. We watched these people sit in the parking lot in Buffalo and look for their family members. We see the hell. The hell is real. The problem is, I don't think we talk enough about what people can do, even when it comes to voting. When the different elections come up, having times like this to say, okay, the presidential election, if that's the first time you voted, it was too damn late. This is the election you should vote in when you pick these people for this reason, because this election determines this. Or telling people that, like you said, this person's coming and telling you to vote, but what do you look for? Educate. Government and econ taught you the little stuff, but really educating us on the elections is the biggest piece. So you mentioned a moment ago, like we are the only ones that come down and disrespect us. But what do you need more groups of? You just said the deacons of defense. What more groups do we need? Because we got groups, we got tribes, we got groups, we got leaders, we got people, we got community activists. But if you can get 1,000 people to come to a party, if I could get that same 1,000 to do something different, what is it that 1,000 that I just got to swag surf can come in and do in a political situation that could make something move? Aside from just voting, what else can we, the people, do better?
Excellent question. And I'm going to be able to answer that one because I'm doing what I see needs to be done. But I'm a teacher and I teach social studies and ELA, so I always like to tie in history. After slavery ended, you know why South Carolina is a special state? South Carolina was the first state to send a black person to the U.S. Congress, Joseph Laney. He was right there from Georgetown. Then we all know about Robert Smalls, right from here in Beaufort. South Carolina sent the first black people to the U.S. Congress. This was after the Civil War, where racial tension was at its peak. Black people were still going through mob violence. The Republicans at the time were the party that was kind of for us at that time, right? Our people could have easily said, well, you know, the Republicans got us. We just going to sit back and let them protect us. We just going to vote for them. Our ancestors said, hell with that. They said, we're not going to just sit back and rely on them. They said, we are going to run for office and replace them. So, Chris, here's what we can do to solve all these problems. We need to educate ourselves for whom we're voting. And when we see that people don't have anything specifically for us, saying Black American, if we see that there is no one on a ballot that is worthy of our vote, then we need to get up and we need to become the person who is worthy of people's votes. We need to run for office. If our ancestors can do it in the 1860s, we can definitely do it now in 2022. I never wanted to get involved in politics. That's why I was living a life as a quiet teacher. My life was quiet.
He was minding your business.
Minding my business. I ran for it because I realized I had two options. I could either sit on the sidelines and complain. There were three options, actually. I could sit on the sidelines and complain, or I could vote for people who weren't going to do a darn thing for us, like Clyburn, and I wasn't going to do that at all. Or I said I could become the person who's going to stand up and be the person who's going to do things for my people. I chose option C. I decided to run and be the person for whom I felt my people deserve.
I agree. My pastor's done that at Rehoboth. Shouts out to Ivory Thick fan. He said, if you want to see a change, you got to get a part of it. And although it was easy to sit back and, like you said, preach, fuss, cuss, and do all those things, if you're not going to get up and be in the room where the decisions are being made, then you're not going to see those changes take place. And that's really big. What has it been like for you to put yourself in that position where you're approaching the masses and saying the things that you become passionate about? You've been in the classroom. You're not reading stats. You've seen the kids. You know the kids. You've been to the funerals. You have the obituaries. I coach children, and I got obituaries from kids that I've worked with. What did that transition of minding your own business feel like from going over to being a part of the business decisions?
It's been a life changer. I mean, this has been the experience of my life in all ways, negative and positive. It has, I'm outspoken, but I'm actually pretty much an introverted person.
Ooh.
And people don't realize that. I really am. Like if I'm at seriously, if I'm at a table, I'll talk with people and have a good conversation. And then after a while, just like that, I'm quiet and I start to recharge. But when you are doing this here, you don't have time to recharge. When your people need you, your people need you. But I tell you how I'm able to come around to that. I was minding my own business until I realized that my people, and when I say my people, I'm not just talking about the people of South Carolina District 6, but I'm talking about Black American people. I had to realize that minding my business, no, my Black American people are my business. And there's something I need to say as well. One thing I've encountered, because I do need to say this, because I know people out there are probably going to say this when they watch this video here. I hear a lot of excuses being made for Congressman Clyburn. A lot of excuses. They say, well, he's in a Republican state. It's the Republicans stopping him. I'm going to shut down these excuses really quick. One, I'm tired of people blaming the Republicans. I'm tired of the Democrats taking our votes from us. And then when we say, what you going to do for us? They say, well, the Republicans are stopping us. We vote for you. So if you are going to tell us that every time we put you in power, you can't do anything because the Republicans are stopping you, then that means you're weak. And maybe I need to start voting for the Republicans because you're saying to me, no matter what we do, you can't do anything. Second of all, I want to say when Congressman Clyburn took this job, he knew the situation he was getting himself into. You don't jump into the water and you don't go. My mother used to never let us go into the water at the beach. We could go up until our knees, and that was it because she knew there was sharks and jellyfish. Okay, if I walk out into the ocean water and a jellyfish stings the hell out of me, I can't complain. I knew what I was getting into. Okay. Right. Clyburn knew what he was getting into when he took this job. He's been there for 30 years. He's gotten a 6-figure salary every single year for 30 years. He became a millionaire while our district has become poor because where we used to own land, we've now lost most of it. So we're actually poorer now than what we used to be. So we talk about being the 6th poorest out of 435. We are also poorer than what we used to be. So if he's taking the paycheck for the job, we have a right to expect him to be able to do the job. The last thing I want to say is that he's been able to do policies for other groups. I just mentioned the Catawba Native Americans. I just mentioned how he's trying to get these illegal immigrants and make them citizens. By the way, I need to tell you something. Most of the Hispanics in South Carolina, according to the research from Duke University, are here in this country illegally. But there was a study they did. Over 70% of the Hispanics that they interviewed said, and this was in 2006, said that most Black Americans were not hardworking, caused trouble, did not contribute to the nation, were lazy, were loudmouth, were criminals. That's how a lot of them feel about us. Those are the same people that Clyburn is trying to make citizens. So he can do things for groups where he wants to. He can do things where he wants to. So don't make any... Our people, we're the only group of people that makes excuses when people don't do right by us. You even got some of our people on TV right now defending or making excuses for that racist monster that killed 10 of our people. There is definitely something not right with some of our people. They're not my people. The last thing I want to say, y'all, is my platform is on my website, marcelforcongress.com. And if anyone can make a donation, I would ask for it. But here's the sad thing. I had a team look over our district. They had all the districts in front of me. Most districts, they can get at least 100,000 donors. In our district, they can barely get to 60,000. That's just how impoverished our area is. It was one of the lowest performing ones when it came to donors. So we have a choice. If we like the way things have been going in our district with the poverty, the poor schools, Black Americans are to the bottom. We're to the bottom in land ownership. We're to the bottom in income. We're to the bottom in wealth. We have the shortest lives. Black men have the shortest lives of all groups. Black women after Black men. If we like the way things are going, then go ahead and vote for Clyburn. Hey, I ain't going to be mad at you. But if you feel that we need someone to put in office, then vote for me. We can make excuses for him, or we can make a difference with me. That's the choice we have. And voting starts May 31st. That early voting is now in South Carolina. It starts May 31st until June 14th.
So tell us about, before we head out, because I know we've hit our hour. What election is coming up this year? What other things are we voting for, and how important is it for us to show out in Groves? We're a generation of cars. I mean, gas is what it is, but we can make it to any party, anything else we want to get to. We can make it out to vote. Early voting is coming up. We have no excuse if we can't get out there to get in there and do it. But what is coming up, and how important is it for us to get into this one?
They have the Register of Deeds, which is very important if a person owns home or land. They have a lot of state seats that are up, the state house, the state senate. Of course, they have the U.S. Congress, which is the seat which I'm running for in South Carolina. They have, I'm trying to think of what other seats I know for which people are running. The secretary, the superintendent of education, the state superintendent of education for the state, which is very, very important as well. And one guy, I'm not necessarily endorsing anyone yet, but one guy I've really been speaking with, his name is Dr. Burgess. And I've been liking some of the things I've heard from him, because as a teacher, obviously education is very important to me. So those are just some of the things that are going to be on the ballot. But I want to say, I know a lot of people like to say that politics is all local, but what people mean when they say that is that local offices sometimes has the most immediate effect. However, sometimes people in federal office, they like to say that because they don't want to be held accountable for nothing. Yes, local offices are important, but federal government is where ultimate decision lies, because the state cannot take anything from you that the federal government gives you. They can only add to it. So look at these illegal immigrants. They're trying to get citizenship. They're not going to the state governments. They're going to the federal government, because they know, and they're not even legal, but they know that our government enough to know that if they get it from the federal level, they can go to any state and be all right. Likewise, my federal office is for us to get when we're old. And that means no matter where we are, of course, I'm going to start with my people here in South Carolina, but it's going to be for my people in Georgia too, North Carolina, Louisiana, you name it. So we have to make this happen. We have a chance to finally put someone in office who is running. My slogan is Repair Black America to Fix America. Some of these people are afraid to say Black. We just had 10 of our people killed, and you can go to Clyburn's social media pages, and he hasn't said the word Black yet. But when the Asian Americans got killed, he not only said anti-Asian hate, he said hashtag stop Asian hate. He hasn't said stop Black hate. He hasn't even, then when Asians got killed, he put forth a bill to protect Asians. He hasn't done that for us yet. We have an opportunity to show people, by showing him, that you are not going to just sit back and watch us get killed and think we're going to continue to let it happen.
And Marcel, let me I do have one final question for you. Because you've spoken a lot about your platform and what you're gonna do if elected. And which a lot of people talk about what they're gonna do once they're in office, right? So let's say you're not elected. All right. So if the vote does not go your way, what's your plan at that point?
Well, my plan is to continue doing what I've been doing. I've been pushing for reparations. I've been pushing for it. I've been holding federal officials accountable. Pete Buttigieg, Joe Cunningham, who was over District 1. And I plan to still hold Clyburn accountable. You see, y'all, here's the problem. I'm going to say this real quick. We think that we are too trusting of people. We vote for these people like this Joe Biden guy, which I don't know why we would have done that. He used to be friends with Strom Thurmond, who was a damn segregationist, a Ku Klux Klan member. He was fighting to keep black kids out of school. He said
He was
putting
like
black
the better
kids,
of two evils.
right. He said, and that's the problem. We got to stop that. But here's the thing, y'all. It's our responsibility to hold politicians accountable. Okay? So if I don't get in office, I'm going to hold Clyburn accountable like I'm holding him accountable now, not being off. I'm not in office right now, and I'm holding him accountable by the sheer fact that I'm running against him and calling him out for the things he has not done. This is holding him accountable. I plan to continue holding him accountable. I plan to continue educating our kids, especially our Black American kids, about what we've done for this nation, what this nation owes us, and how we're going to get it. But I plan to still use this loud mouth of mine, if nothing else. And if I get in office, Tracy Hayward Whitehead, if I get in office and I don't do what I say I'm going to do, it's your jobs to hold me accountable. It's your job to show up at my door with a pitchfork, okay? And that could even be literally and say, hey, what's going on? Where our bills at? That's what other groups do. Look at how white Americans act when Lindsey Graham comes to town. They show up and they will tell him, you work for me. We don't work for you. We are the only group that lets politicians lie to us and not do what they say they're going to do, and then we dance with them at the fish fry. We hitting the quan with them. We doing the stinky leg. We doing all that with them. We are the only group that we allow politicians to take us as a joke. If I get in office and I don't do what I say, when I get off that airplane, y'all better be waiting for me at Savannah Hilton Head Island Airport. That's what you do. You put pressure on politicians. You make them have a fear of not doing right by you. And before Clyburn's team sees this and tries to run with it and say I'm advocating for violence, I'm not saying violence, but I'm saying don't play with us, okay? That's what we are supposed to do. We have failed. We have to take responsibility for this. We have allowed politicians like Clyburn to be in office for 3 decades. 30 years, longer than a lot of us has been alive, or almost as long as we've been alive. Our district is almost the poorest place to live in the U.S. Black Americans have only gotten poorer, and we have allowed him to hold fish fries, and not one of us called him and say anything about why he's done us wrong. That is our fault. So if I get in office and I switch up, which I will not, but if I do, and I'm with y'all having a fish fry or doing a low country boil, and y'all don't call me out, that's y'all fault for sitting there and letting me take y'all as a joke. Stop letting these politicians take us as a joke.
It is our time to get out there and really make sure that we go out there now. And for those of us who are educated on certain things, it is time for us to go in and really teach and really educate and really verbalize the importance of voting and verbalize the importance of the politicians and what we're supposed to do and how to hold people accountable. Because one thing that you said that I will say I wholeheartedly agree with, because I've never done this, is walked up to a politician and said, you work for me. It's just like I was working at a company one time and a white lady I worked with said, I'm not worried when the boss come in. He put his pants on just like me. I told him what I will do and what I will not do, what hours I will work and what hours I will not work. And she still got the job, but we don't walk in and say what we will and won't do because we're grateful that you hired us. It is weird that we really don't put our foot down.
Ask Mrs. Toomer about me. Oh, I am quick to say what I will and will not do. And because I'm a person who kind of stands up for our people and I don't back down, especially when I'm a teacher, I'm tough for my kids. I make no apologies for it. I will never make any apologies for it. Okay? You got to be tough for your kids. Tough love works. When some of these parents call themselves complaining about me, it's usually never really our parent. There's always a small group. But I don't back down to them. I don't back down to my principal either, because at the end of the year, my data is always good. Other teachers' data is down here. It shows what works. So, no. And y'all, look, we can't be nice about it either. We can be respectful, but you don't have to be nice about it. Politics is not about being nice and being friends with people. Politics is about saying, you work for me. Where's the results? What are you going to do for my people?
Absolutely. And Marcel, this has been very refreshing, very eye-opening. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. And I share I shared with you, when we were speaking during the week, and I didn't know a lot about you until now. And I got to tell you,
mind blowing.
I do like what I see. You know what I mean? And like I said,
Absolutely.
I vote informed. I don't vote. I categorize myself as a Democrat, so to speak, but I don't vote solely based upon that. So I vote for who I think the absolute best candidate is. And so sometimes you do need fresh blood in there. And obviously, if there's anything that I can do, that we can do to help, promote you, you've given us a lot of information. We got your website right here. Everybody can see it, marcelforcongress.com. Check him out. Check out his platform. And other than checking out your website, how can people reach out to you?
I was just about to say that. Okay, one, I want to say real quick, there's plenty of interviews I've done, like plenty. And there's plenty of video clips of me on the internet. Watch at your own discernment. But there's plenty of videos of me on the internet confronting politicians way before I even thought about doing this, about what you going to do for Black Americans. You talk about Hispanics and Asians. Whoa, hold on. You forgot someone, didn't you? So check me. You can always Google me. I'm not responsible for what you find, but you can always Google me. If you want to get there's stuff out there now. But if you want to get in contact with me, here's my number. I do respond to texts. People always can't believe that I do. You can call. Calls are hard, but I do respond to texts. Maybe not right away, but I will. My number is 843-940-8983. Now, if you text me and it's a good faith question or a comment or discussion, I'm always willing to have it. But if people text me just to make excuses for Clyburn, you might as well go ahead and save those digital letters. I'm not trying to hear no excuses. I've had people try to call me and say, well, man, come on, man. Clyburn been there since day one. Yeah, that's the problem. You've been there since day one. Exactly. And look how bad we are. Okay? So if you're going to call me and try to make excuses for Congressman Clyburn, you might as well save that. I'm not buying it. We are the only group that accepts excuses. No more. I'm not my parents' generation. I'm not my grandparents' generation.
That's no more excuses. I'm not my parents' generation. No exactly. More excuses.
Absolutely. And again, this has been great, man. It really has been. And our next episode of the podcast is actually going to be on June 5th. It's going to be a very special episode for me. A lot of you may know my father recently passed away. And my sister, Nicole, and I, his daughter, we didn't grow up in the same household. We formed our relationship later on in life. So the title of that episode is going to be He's My Father, But. And what we're going to do, our goal is to really help other people in our similar situation that, we're not responsible for the family dynamics we grew up in. We're not responsible for who our parents are, how we came to be. But what we are responsible for are our actions and how we treat those people. So we're going to talk about our experiences, some of the difficulties we had, talk about our experiences with our dad, positive and negative. And hopefully we can help some people along the way to let them know that no matter what situation you're born into, no matter what cards you're dealt, it all is how you play those specific cards. So, but that's going to be on Sunday, June the 5th at 6 p.m. And we'll be promoting that in the weeks to come. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting, and we're looking forward to it. So hopefully we'll see you guys again then.
There's a lot coming and a lot going on, and so much going on. You certainly want to make sure that we're voting. So definitely remember that we talked about the early voting that's coming this in May, and make sure that we talk about coming between, I think he said May 31st and June 14th, that we get out there and prepare for these elections. And read up for what you're voting for. Hook, you got a lot coming up. My hands are full between Get Hooked and CTS podcast. And this week we got the Goodfellas on May 25th. And then we're about to hit the road again. And we got the all white party June 4th. And then you got June 5th. And then Juneteenth is coming up with Jamal and Tina Torres. And we're going to be out there with everything talking about freedom and the progress of Black people. So this is a jam-packed summer. And I'm very, very excited. I got a lot of Red Bulls. And prayers and more wigs than you can imagine. So listen, let's get it together. And
it's going to be great. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. And and I'm looking forward to it. So
I am too.
and for the audience, again, I appreciate you guys for joining. Make sure you share, make sure you react, and so a lot of people can see exactly what Marcel is, who Marcel is, and what he stands for. So, but again, we appreciate you guys, and we'll see you again on June 5th.
See you soon. Good to be back. Good night.